You've heard it before, winning isn't everything. But what if I told you that winning changes everything? Not just your bank account, not just your reputation, but your brain, your biology, your chemistry, your entire psychology. That's the mind-blowing idea at the heart of the winner effect by Ian Robertson, a world-renowned neuroscientist who reveals something most people have never been told. Every time you win, you change. And if you learn how to control that change, you can build unstoppable momentum. In business, in leadership, in sports, in learning, in confidence, in life. But here's the twist. Winning can turn you into a stronger, smarter, more focused version of yourself. Or it can destroy you. It can make you bold and brilliant, or reckless and delusional. Because the same effect that boosts your brain power can also inflate your ego. That's the real power of this book. It doesn't just show you how to win, it shows you how to win wisely. In this full breakdown here on Compact Wisdom, we're going to unpack exactly how this effect works, why success makes future success more likely, how power rewires your brain, for better or worse, why some people rise after a win, and others self-destruct. Stick around until the end, because I'm going to show you the science behind how testosterone and dopamine shift your brain's performance after a single win, why early success is dangerous without self-awareness, how to use micro-wins to reprogram your confidence, and how to protect yourself from the psychological trap that ruins leaders, CEOs, politicians, and even athletes at the top of their game. This isn't a motivational video. This is neuroscience. But once you understand how it works, you'll never look at success the same way again. You'll see why some people seem to become addicted to winning, and how that addiction, when harnessed, can turn you into a high performer. But left unchecked, it can make you arrogant, blind, and out of control. The difference between those two paths? Awareness. And that's what we're going to build in the next 7 parts. Let's dive in and discover the winner effect, and how to make it work for you, not against you. Part 1. The science of winning. What actually happens in your brain? So what is the winner effect? At its core, it's this: winning changes your brain, literally. Each time you win, your brain responds with a surge of chemical and neurological activity that strengthens your capacity to win again. It's not just psychological. It's biological. Here's what Ian Robertson found in the research. When you win, whether it's a business deal, a tennis match, a test, even a video game, your body produces a burst of testosterone, regardless of your gender. And this testosterone surge isn't just about aggression or ego. It directly affects how your dopamine system functions. Now let's simplify that. Testosterone amplifies your brain's response to dopamine, the neurotransmitter that governs motivation, focus, learning, and anticipation of reward. So when you win, your brain becomes more sensitive to success. It starts craving it more. It learns faster. It sharpens your decision-making. It primes you to perform better next time. This is the winner effect. A win boosts testosterone, which enhances dopamine response, which makes you more confident, focused, and likely to win again. It's like a feedback loop of momentum. And here's where it gets fascinating. Researchers have studied this in everything from mice to athletes to financial traders. They found that a mouse who wins one fight becomes more likely to win the next one, even if their physical strength doesn't change. Why? Because the brain chemistry shifts. The mouse becomes bolder, more confident, more willing to take action. Same thing happens with stock traders. One study showed that traders who had a winning morning, even a small one, became riskier and more successful as the day went on. Their testosterone levels were rising, subtly increasing their willingness to seize opportunities. But here's where the line gets thin. That same chemical cocktail that makes you more confident can also make you overconfident. If you don't regulate it, the winner effect can flip on you. You start thinking you're invincible. You stop checking your blind spots. You ignore risks. You take shortcuts. You become addicted to the feeling of winning and start chasing it at all costs. That's when leaders collapse, when investors crash, when athletes go from champions to cautionary tales. They lose because they won too many times without self-awareness. Winning isn't neutral. It changes you. And if you don't know how, you become a passenger in your own brain. So what does this mean for you? It means every win you experience, big or small, is an opportunity to either level up or lose touch. And the deciding factor is how you respond to the win. Do you reflect or just celebrate? Do you analyze or just repeat? Do you build on it or become drunk on it? That's the first lesson of the winner effect. Winning rewires your brain. And what it wires you for depends on how you use it. So if you want to build momentum in any area of your life, you don't have to wait for a massive win. Start with micro wins. Daily wins. Wins you create on purpose, like finishing a task early, holding a boundary, sticking to your routine. Because each of those sends a message to your brain. We're moving forward. And your chemistry starts shifting with you. But stay conscious. Because that same chemical shift, if unchecked, can turn a high performer into a blind egomaniac. Awareness is the key. This is where the book really starts to shine, because Robertson isn't telling you to win. He's telling you to understand what winning does to you, and use that process strategically. And we're just getting started. Next, we'll explore how power fits into all this, and how it can either sharpen your mind or corrupt your perspective. Because winning often leads to power, and that, too, has its own effect. Part 2. The Power Effect. How success rewires your mindset. Here's what Ian Robertson discovered that most people miss. Power changes the brain. Not metaphorically. Not figuratively. Literally. Chemically. Functionally. And depending on how you handle it, that change can make you brilliant and effective, or it can make you delusional, impulsive, and out of control. That's the power effect. It works like this. When you begin to accumulate success, more wins, more recognition, more influence, your brain starts to shift in response. Dopamine and testosterone increase, just like we saw in part 1, but now they're sustained. Your confidence grows. Your voice becomes more authoritative. Your willingness to take bold actions increases. So far, that sounds amazing. And it is, until it's not. Because here's the trap. Power reduces inhibition. And when inhibition goes down, two things happen. 1. You stop second-guessing yourself. 2. You stop hearing feedback from others. That's when things get dangerous. Robertson points out that people in positions of power often develop a kind of neurological blind spot. They start believing they're right more often than they actually are. Their empathy can decrease. Their patience drops. And they lose the ability to self-regulate, because their brain has literally rewired itself to operate from a place of dominance, not connection. You've probably seen it before. A startup founder who begins grounded and thoughtful, then gets successful and starts believing they're a genius in every area. A politician who began with humble goals, but after years in office, can't see beyond their own agenda. A team leader who stops listening, stops learning, and starts operating from a place of, I already know. That's not character failure. That's brain chemistry. And that's what makes it so dangerous. It feels normal from the inside. The power effect isn't just about arrogance. It's about how success dampens your internal brakes. The parts of the brain that regulate risk-taking, emotional empathy, and reflection get quieter. The go signals get louder. And slowly, you drift into a world where you're running on confidence, without calibration. But here's the powerful insight from the book. Power only corrupts when it goes unexamined. If you stay conscious, if you build systems of feedback, accountability, and reflection, power can enhance your brain instead of distorting it. In fact, some of the best leaders in the world have found a way to balance this effect. They embrace the confidence that comes from power, but they stay grounded by staying connected to reality, to people, to purpose. Robertson points out that self-aware leaders actively build friction into their lives. They create routines that slow them down. They surround themselves with truth-tellers. They study their own behavior like a scientist, not a celebrity. Because they know, power isn't neutral. It's a force. And if you don't direct it, it will direct you. So how do you apply this? First, whenever you start gaining momentum, more followers, more wins, more recognition, pause. Ask yourself, am I still listening as much as I'm speaking? Am I making decisions faster just because I feel more confident? Am I letting my success override the process that got me here? Second, create tension. Add people to your circle who challenge you. Revisit the basics. Reflect on your motivations. Practice humility on purpose, not as a performance, but as a safeguard. And third, remember that power, used well, can expand your potential. It can make you more generous, more focused, more courageous. But only if you stay awake. Because the most dangerous moment for any winner is the moment they stop thinking they can lose. Part 3. The Confidence Trap. Why winning can make you stupid. It's one of the strangest truths in psychology. Winning makes you smarter, until it makes you stupid. And that turning point is usually so subtle, you don't even feel it. Ian Robertson explains this through what he calls the confidence trap. A phenomenon where the very thing that helps you succeed at first becomes the exact thing that causes you to crash later. Here's how it works. When you win, whether it's a game, a negotiation, a deal, or any form of achievement, your brain gets that rush of dopamine and testosterone. And that feels incredible. It lights up your reward centers. You start to associate risk with reward, boldness with victory, and most dangerously, yourself with being right. This is where the trap starts to form. You begin to overestimate your abilities. You stop preparing as thoroughly. You take bolder bets, not because they're smarter, but because your brain is now wired to expect success. Confidence detaches from reality and becomes an illusion of invincibility. One of the studies Robertson cites involves stock traders. The more they won, the more they began to overtrade, overleverage, and ignore warning signs. Their brain was soaked in dopamine and testosterone, making them feel untouchable, until the market humbled them. Same happens with athletes. The rookie is focused, cautious, sharp. But after a few wins, they get sloppy, loose, emotional, overconfident. They stop doing the small things that got them there in the first place. And that's when the fall begins. The confidence trap is sneaky because it feels like growth. It feels like momentum. You feel smarter, sharper, bolder. But you're actually running on chemistry, not clarity. And that's the danger. When your confidence outpaces your competence, you're in the red zone. So how do you stay out of the trap? It starts with recognizing the difference between earned confidence and inflated confidence. Earned confidence comes from preparation, reflection, and feedback. Inflated confidence comes from repetition of success without introspection. Robertson says the key is to build in reality checks. Constantly. One of the best examples of this is in fighter pilots. Despite their elite status and high skill level, they debrief after every mission, even if it went perfectly. Why? Because confidence without review is just ego in disguise. Another strategy: remember your losses. Not to dwell on them, but to stay balanced. If you only focus on wins, your brain gets addicted to certainty. But if you carry the lessons of failure, your confidence stays grounded, not arrogant. Here's a personal way to test where you are. When was the last time you questioned one of your assumptions? When was the last time you asked someone smarter than you for advice? When was the last time you failed and learned instead of defended yourself? Those are the signs of someone escaping the trap. Because here's the truth. You need confidence to win. But you need humility to keep winning. And humility isn't weakness. It's self-awareness in motion. It's the part of your brain that says, yes, I'm good, but I'm not immune. And when you operate from that place, you keep your edge sharp, not inflated. So the goal isn't to avoid confidence. It's to protect it from becoming arrogance. You want to build confidence that's flexible, not fragile. Confidence that asks, how can I improve? Not, how can I prove myself? Confidence that grows with reality, not against it. Because once confidence becomes a performance, you've already started to lose. Part 4. Small wins, big momentum. How to train your brain to expect success. You don't need to win a championship, $1 million deal, or a Nobel Prize to activate the winner effect. In fact, Ian Robertson argues that some of the most powerful neurological shifts come from something far smaller, more sustainable, and much more under your control. Micro-wins. See, your brain doesn't care if the win is public or private, big or small. What it cares about is the pattern. Every time you experience a win, completing a task, hitting a goal, keeping a promise to yourself, your brain delivers that familiar cocktail of dopamine and testosterone. And every time it happens, your brain learns, success is normal. Progress is possible. I'm in control. The effect builds. The response grows stronger. Your confidence deepens, not because you're chasing validation, but because your neurobiology is shifting to expect success. And here's the magic. Once you build a brain that expects success, you start showing up like a person who succeeds. You focus better. You hesitate less. You recover from setbacks faster. You naturally take more initiative. This is momentum, and it starts with small wins done on purpose. Robertson points out that the key to unlocking the winner effect is repetition, not size. A person who builds a daily practice of completing meaningful tasks will change faster and more sustainably than someone who randomly stumbles into a huge win. This is why elite performers, athletes, and creatives all emphasize routines. Not because they're boring, but because they're neurochemical triggers. Each win in the system reinforces the next. Think of it like compound interest for your mind. So how do you create this for yourself? Start by defining what a win actually means in your context. Not what looks good online. Not what other people define for you. What's a win that makes you stronger? It could be sticking to your morning routine, finishing a difficult task without distraction, saying no when it matters, pushing past resistance in a workout, speaking up when you'd normally stay silent. These are small, but they're not trivial. Because the brain doesn't measure wins by applause. It measures wins by consistency. Next, stack those wins early in the day. Robertson shares how people who experience success early in a given time block, like morning, are more likely to carry that energy forward. Not because the wins are huge, but because they light the fire early. You might have experienced this yourself. You wake up, hit your routine, get one meaningful task done before noon, and suddenly you're moving with energy, clarity, and speed. That's not just motivation. That's chemistry shifting in real time. Now compare that to days when you wake up, check your phone, procrastinate, and scroll. Even if you turn it around later, the psychological tone is different. Your system didn't get that early activation. Your body and mind feel scattered, even if you manage to push through. This is why small wins, stacked intentionally, are not a productivity hack. They're a rewiring protocol. They turn your brain into a system that craves forward motion and delivers it. Here's a simple framework to start building that. 1. Define 3 daily wins: personal, professional, physical. 2. Make them achievable but meaningful, something that requires effort, not perfection. 3. Track them daily, not for pressure, but for pattern recognition. 4. Reflect weekly. What kind of momentum are you building? And here's the mindset shift. Stop waiting for a big moment to prove you're a winner. Start training your brain to become one, day by day, quietly, consistently. Because when you do that, something changes. You stop chasing success, and you start expecting it. Not with arrogance, with clarity, with momentum. Because you've taught your mind, your body, and your behavior what it feels like to win. And you can do it again, and again, and again. Part 5. The Biology of Losing. Why failure feels worse than you think. Here's something Ian Robertson makes crystal clear. Failure doesn't just hurt emotionally. It rewires your brain. Just like winning triggers a chemical response that enhances performance, losing triggers a response that suppresses it. And if repeated often, or internalized too deeply, it can lead to a psychological and biological spiral. This is what's known as the loser effect. Let's break it down. When you experience failure, defeat, or even a social loss like rejection or humiliation, your brain doesn't just feel bad. It undergoes a series of chemical changes. Testosterone levels drop, a dopamine response becomes blunted, a cortisol, the stress hormone, rises to your prefrontal cortex, responsible for focus, strategy, and decision-making, becomes less active. Your amygdala, which governs fear and threat detection, becomes more active. In plain English, you become more anxious, more reactive, less focused, and less willing to take smart risks. That's why failure often leads to hesitation, avoidance, and low confidence. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is actively trying to protect you from further pain. This made evolutionary sense. Back when rejection meant exile or defeat meant death, avoiding another loss kept you alive. But in today's world, that same system can paralyze you. One failure on a test becomes, "I'm not smart enough." One rejection turns into, "I'm not good with people." One business flop becomes, "I'm not meant to lead." Your brain draws conclusions fast, and repeats them until they feel like facts. Worse still, the loser effect has a feedback loop just like the winner effect. The more you lose, or feel like you're losing, the more your brain adapts to expect it. You become more cautious, less ambitious, less likely to try again. You stop seeking challenge, because you've been neurologically taught that pain follows effort. This is why many talented people never realize their potential. It's not that they lack ability. It's that their brains got rewired to fear effort after too many early losses. But here's the twist, and it's one of the most powerful insights in the book. You can reverse the loser effect. You can teach your brain to stop associating failure with identity. But it takes deliberate action and deliberate perspective. Robertson offers 3 keys. 1. Separate identity from outcome. Failure isn't feedback about who you are. It's feedback about what you did and what to do differently. That gap between self-worth and performance is what gives you resilience. The most successful people don't see failure as a reflection of themselves. They see it as information. 2. Interrupt the feedback loop. When you lose, your brain is vulnerable. That's not the time to isolate or ruminate. It's the time to move, reconnect, and take action. Even small action. Especially small action. It interrupts the freeze response and prevents your brain from spiraling into a threat state. 3. Stack small wins immediately after loss. You don't need to redeem yourself with a big comeback. What you need is to shift your chemistry. Do something achievable, a workout, a tough conversation, finishing a task, anything that gives your brain a sense of agency. That's how you turn losing into fuel. And here's the deeper truth. Failure only destroys you if you believe it's final. But in reality, it's temporary and mechanical. A signal, not a sentence. If you treat failure as a trigger to reflect, refocus, and re-engage, your brain begins to decouple loss from fear. And that's how you become resilient. You stop fearing setbacks. You stop making losses mean something about your identity. You begin to understand what high performers already know. Losing isn't the opposite of winning. It's part of how winners are made. Part 6. The Winner's Edge. How to stay sharp when you're on top. Success changes everything. It changes how people treat you. It changes what they expect from you. It changes how you see yourself. And if you're not careful, it changes how you think. Ian Robertson spends a whole section of the winner effect exploring this overlooked but critical stage of success. Not the climb, but the plateau. The moment when you've won enough to feel powerful, but not enough to feel invincible. That's when things get tricky. Because when you're on top, 3 things happen. 1. You stop getting honest feedback. 2. You start believing your own hype. 3. You stop doing the things that got you there. That's when the winner effect flips on itself. Not because success is bad, but because it blinds you. Your brain, soaked in dopamine and testosterone, starts to crave novelty, risk, and validation more than truth, process, or focus. And if you don't catch it early, you drift. Robertson compares it to the trajectory of CEOs, politicians, and athletes who crash after peak success. Not because they got lazy, but because their internal compass got warped by the constant rush of winning. They weren't grounded. They were high on success, on power, on attention. So the question becomes, how do you stay sharp, grounded, and improving while you're winning? The answer? You need to build deliberate constraints. When everything around you says, you've made it, you need to remind yourself, I'm still becoming. Here are 3 strategies drawn from Robertson's research and elite performers. 1. Create friction. On purpose. One of the biggest dangers of winning is smoothness. Everything starts to feel easy. People say yes to you. You get opportunities, respect, shortcuts. And that's great, until your mind softens. That's why top-level people build controlled resistance into their lives. They train harder when they're already strong. They seek tougher feedback when they're already praised. They add challenge when others would coast. Because they know growth requires friction. No friction equals no edge. So ask yourself, where am I too comfortable? Where have I stopped being challenged? What part of my routine used to be hard and is now automatic? Wherever you find smoothness, add tension. That's where your edge is rebuilt. 2. Audit your inputs when you're winning. People start feeding you more of what you already believe. They agree more. Challenge less. Compliment more. If you're not careful, you start living in an echo chamber of excellence, where you're never wrong, always impressive, and never pushed. That's when your thinking dulls. The solution: input diversity. Stay close to people who see the world differently. Spend time in conversations where you're not the expert. Read material that challenges your perspective. Stay humble enough to say, I don't know, because the moment you stop updating your worldview, you stop evolving, and the world doesn't wait. 3. Stay connected to your why. Winning can become a drug. And like any drug, it numbs the part of you that's grounded in purpose. The best performers, the ones who last, stay deeply rooted in why they started. They don't win to win. They win to serve, to solve, to elevate. When your why is internal, you don't need applause to keep going. You don't need to keep topping your last performance. You just keep building, quietly, consistently, intentionally. So take time to revisit your origin story. What drove you before anyone knew your name? What part of you stayed awake at night before success came? What would you do even if no one noticed? Anchor to that, because that's your edge. Here's the big idea from this part of the book. Success is a signal, not a finish line. If you treat winning like a trophy, you slow down. If you treat it like feedback, you speed up, smarter, sharper, more focused. You want to build the kind of momentum that doesn't fade when the applause stops. The kind that outlasts trends, outlasts hype. The kind that's forged in clarity, not chaos. And that only happens when you protect your mind from the seduction of success and keep showing up like you're still climbing. Because you are. Part 7. Rewiring your future. How to use the winner effect for long-term growth. At this point, you know what winning does to your brain. You know about the surge of testosterone and dopamine. You know about the loop of confidence, action, more confidence. You've seen the risks: overconfidence, loss of inhibition, the crash after unchecked power. And you've seen the solutions: grounding, reflection, humility, tension. But now comes the most important question. What do you do with all this? How do you build a life that uses the winner effect not just for short-term gains, but for long-term transformation? Ian Robertson's final insight is this: winning is a tool, a trigger, a neurochemical shortcut to belief. And if you use it with intention, you can rewire your brain and your identity for life. Here's how. Step 1. Build a win-generating environment. We tend to think of winning as something that happens to us. But high performers think differently. They design environments that make winning easier, even if it's small, quiet, or internal. They control distractions. They engineer routines. They surround themselves with people who sharpen, not soften, their thinking. Because environment beats willpower. If your world is built to support progress, your brain starts associating daily life with momentum, and you build the winner effect on autopilot. So ask, what in your current world promotes winning? What steals your edge? What needs to change so your default state is forward motion? Step 2. Use micro-wins to shift identity. The goal isn't just to feel good after a win. The goal is to build a new default identity. I'm someone who finishes what I start. I'm someone who takes bold action. I'm someone who shows up no matter what. Every win, no matter how small, is a brick in the foundation of that identity. The more wins you stack, the more your brain believes, this is who I am now. That's how the winner effect becomes permanent. It's not about chasing bigger highs. It's about making success feel familiar. Step 3. Reflect instead of react. Most people never integrate their wins. They move on too fast. That's how ego forms, and why progress stops. But if you build a habit of reflection, you anchor every success in wisdom. After every win, ask, what worked here? What mindset helped me show up? What pattern can I replicate next time? This turns winning into a system, not a surprise. And systems create long-term growth. Step 4. Redefine what winning means. One of Robertson's deepest messages is this: not all wins are equal. A win that inflates your ego but isolates you? That's not a win. A win that breaks your values to impress strangers? That's a loss in disguise. A win that costs your health, your integrity, or your peace of mind? Not worth it. So redefine winning for yourself. Make it internal, sustainable, purpose-driven. Maybe winning means showing up when it's hard. Maybe it's telling the truth. Maybe it's doing the right thing even when nobody sees it. The more you define winning on your own terms, the less you'll be pulled by the world's noise, and the more grounded your momentum becomes. Here's the bottom line: the winner effect is real. It's biological. But it's not destiny. You don't have to be a prisoner of your highs or your lows. You can use neuroscience as a tool to reshape who you are, how you show up, and what you build. Not once, but over and over again. Because the person who wins isn't the one with the best luck. It's the one who understands how to use success as fuel, and who keeps growing long after the crowd stops cheering. Make that person you. Conclusion. So now you know. Winning isn't just about talent, or timing, or hustle. It's about chemistry, about how your brain responds to success, and what you do with that response. And that's what the winner effect teaches us: that momentum is trainable, that confidence is chemical, that success isn't just something you chase, it's something you build from the inside out. So here's the invitation. Start stacking your wins. Small ones, daily ones, internal ones. Study your patterns, watch your mind, and grow with your eyes open. Because the real winner isn't the one who wins once. It's the one who knows how to keep winning without losing themselves. If this breakdown lit something up in you, let me know in the comments. Backhand index pointing right. What was your biggest takeaway from the winner effect? Backhand index pointing right. What's one micro win you're going to create for yourself today? And if you want to go deeper into the science and strategy, grab the full book using the affiliate link in the description. That supports the Compact Wisdom channel and puts this incredible knowledge in your own hands. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe. This is where powerful ideas meet practical action. One book, one mindset shift, one win at a time. We'll see you in the next one. Now go build your momentum. Win wisely.